Dude, this is probably gonna be fucking epic.
Great.
All right, it's recording. All right, hello and welcome to the Pankration Philosophy Podcast. I'm Pocholo Cruz. I'm Scott McDonald, co-host. This is our guest,
Colin McDonald.
Ah, shit, there's two of them.
What? Any relation?
There's a dog over here,
Well,
so the dog might get in the shot.
This might be the best podcast that anyone's ever seen.
Yeah, we're outdoors.
It is.
In the great outdoors. We're here with a great guest, Colin. We're here with a great outdoorsman.
Yeah. I've been waiting
Also
for this.
known as Grizzly Man.
Grizzly Man.
Grizzly Colin.
Yeah.
You see that ninja shit I did? I was like,
I did. I saw that ninja shit. It was on point, man.
Right.
Okay, speaking of ninja shit,
Yeah.
So Colin, how did you get started in martial arts?
Man, that's a question that go back to a different era of life.
era?
Yeah.
Life?
Well,
Okay.
like, because what got me into fighting in general, I'd say, was a lot of Power Rangers.
Okay.
Power Rangers. Scott and I would watch Power
I've
Rangers.
heard similar.
Yeah, and Dragon Ball Z. We come from that, early '90s era where all the super fighting heroes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like that was our introduction into fighting. But like what got me into mixed martial arts and martial arts. Scott and I would go do like the YMCA classes for like the karate and taekwondo and stuff, which they didn't really teach you much, but like I remember we were doing this like sacrifice roll, and like I judo through the instructor, and I was like 8 years old.
Was it Sensei Mike?
No, dude, it was Sensei Mike. Yeah.
Because Scott was talking about Sensei Mike and now he had beef with him.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was telling him about how we used to take off on the other kids and stuff too.
Man, that's if I could
I
have
forgot
one
the-
job.
Wait, when you guys were in your 20s or when you were 8?
No, when they were 8.
No, right.
Like,
Tell
imagine
the, I don't
Scott
remember the
McDonald.
judo throw story though. Tell that.
So we got so we were going through like all these drills, and like I was really easily distracted as a kid. So like I would see like all the kids doing like their forms, and I was so like self-conscious that I like had to, every time I punched I had to look over and be like, am I punching right compared to the rest of the class?
Ender still does that.
Yeah, that's just me now.
Yeah. And I
Podcast is about you, Ender.
yeah. And so like they formed us up in this line, and they had us do like like when you warm up for jiu-jitsu class and you do your classic roll, jump and roll. It was kind of like that. Like he was trying to help us over, right? And he was just like gonna guide us over. And then I go and I'm just like, I judo throw him, and he just like gets up and looks at me because I don't remember the whole thing about him beating up on the other kids in class or whatever. Which
No, us beating up.
beating up the other kids. Okay.
And not beating them up, but just when you remember they'd have us square off and go like block. Remember that?
Yeah.
And then we go, just like to the chest.
I don't know if that's worse or better.
Well, yeah, because we're like, I'm sitting here trying to teleport and like trying to do all this Super Saiyan stuff. Like these kids are looking at me weird because they're like ice, and I'm just like I'm trying to like teleport in there.
But you judo through Sensei Mike.
Well, I teleported through Sensei Mike, and I just showed him. I flipped him, and like he wasn't trying to do it. Like he wasn't trying to go. But then I was like, and he's like this grown ass man, and he gets up.
Face, Sensei Mike.
He gets up and he looks at me and he goes, "That's a different class." But then I was like, "What?" And he's like, "But I like it. I like that." So like I was super hyped, and like those kind of experiences, I was just like, "Okay, yeah, this is like really cool." But when I was like 13 or 14, Scott had gotten really into Aikido and then combat sports, and we were watching the first couple Ultimate Fighters, like with Stephen Bonner and Horace Griffin. And we. And I remember I was up there one night, and like Scott and I were watching like the first season, like first or second season, and like I get up and I'm like, what is this? And I'm just like, oh yeah. And I'm just like shadow boxing, and Scott's like, what the fuck are you doing? And I was just like so hyped about it. But then my dad got us a punching bag for Christmas or something like that.
Fucked that thing.
Dude, and we would sit there, and it was in our garage, right? It was in my parents' garage, and we so like we had this, and Scott got boxing gloves, like pro boxing gloves, and this is before you even train
like
Muay
pro,
Thai.
like you have to like tie
You have to lace it up, yeah.
Wow.
And so,
Make sure you remember or tell them about like when we used to have boxing matches.
oh yeah,
basement.
oh
Anyway, go
yeah.
ahead.
Well,
Yeah,
well,
finish with the bag.
we
yeah.
were hitting the bag. We'd hit the bag, and like, you know, like the garage was just like this. Like we didn't have a clean house where we grew up, so like there'd be shit everywhere. Not like literal shit, but like just things. You know, well, I mean, sometimes.
Yeah.
If like mid training session, if we had to go, we had to
There'd be
go.
dog shit in there sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes. But we found sticks, and you don't know if there's nails in these sticks or like anything like that. But like we'd hit the bag, and we'd have these sticks, and you'd have to bring your hand back, or we'd slap the shit out of you. And I just remember hitting Scott super hard, and he just looks at me. And he's just like hitting the bag super hard. No technique, just like
No, cause he would get behind the heavy bag with this giant stick, and I'd be like, bro, this is gonna make us the best fighters. And then he's like, yeah, sure thing, bro, cause he's my little brother, so I'll do it. And I'm swinging, and he just has this giant stick. And then every time my hand drops, he's like, whack! Keep your hands up, and I'm like, yeah, bro.
but that's how we learned, you know. And then
And then I got Zions.
oh my god,
I bought powdered Zions. I thought it was gonna make me a better fighter.
Alright, because Chuck Liddell took it.
well, yeah, because Chuck Liddell was like running up the hill, right?
Yeah, he's like running up like a sand mountain or something.
He's like, I have science.
Science.
But what really happened, he's like, yeah, I take science all the time, and I knock people out. And then they're like, cut, and he goes over to this table, and there's all this like Keystone Light, and he's just like, he's like, I'm so sad inside.
I drank the Zions, right? I drank the Zions and then tried to run up a hill. I couldn't finish going up the hill, and I vomited halfway through.
It's like
You're
just
like-
puking blue.
Yeah, like this commercial line. So yeah, because what was that? I remember the Zions commercial, but what was the Zions product supposed to do? It was like a pre-workout.
Pre-workout, yeah, like no
okay.
explode or.
Okay. And it wasn't as hardcore as like no exploder, like Jacked.
Yeah.
Remember Jack, dude?
Oh, or 1MR. I took 1MR when I used to lift weights. It actually was like gave me a little extra boost, or I thought it did, but
1MR, when I would drink it, it would give me extra boost. And by boost, I mean I have a giant erection when I was lifting weights.
if you ever saw the documentary with Arnold Schwarzenegger about the Mr. Olympian, yeah, he's like talking about it. He's just like, whenever I pump, I just feel like I'm making love to a woman, and like this is him narrating it. And he gets up after lifting weights, and he's just got this huge boner, and it's like this, and he's just like,
it makes
me want to pump iron.
When I lift, it makes me feel like I'm coming with a woman, and you're like, oh.
So we
gym bag or garage. Heavy bag,
yeah,
with the gloves and the stick,
and the stick.
But then we would be in the basement training technique.
One more part, and we always downloaded 5 videos on the computer in our room and watched them.
Well, we watched
5 videos, like professional fight
hood
videos,
fights,
bum fights, boxing, kickboxing. I was really into Roy Jones.
Yeah.
Roy Jones Jr. Was like one of my biggest influences, like my style. And then when I got into more with MMA, Anderson Silva, because they had a really similar style. They're southpaw, they long left hands, you know, just like really good maneuverability. But so what we do is we would watch these videos, we would train, and then we would have our friends come over and we would box.
We'd have the homies come over
and we would scrap. And
we would have the homies.
So it could be in the basement, or it could be outside in the alley, or it could be down the street. But yeah, we would just box, and each person gets the gloves, and we just scrap. We scrap. Yeah. There was no like
you guys had 2 pairs of gloves, right?
We had 2 pairs of gloves, yeah, and like we would go in our backyard.
doesn't get gloves.
No, imagine like we have one guy has a left glove, one guy has.
Well, because we would either spar in the alley, right outside of the house, or in the basement. And I remember when we first started doing it, Colin. It was me, Colin, and our friend Jordan Donovan, and Colin.
You want me to tell a story?
Yeah, I do.
So like there would be times where we'd be down in the basement, we'd be watching fights or like replays of fights. We'd record them, and we would like get to a certain point. Like Matt Hughes would do like an arm bar, or GSP would do an arm bar, and we would mimic that, and we'd go step by step and be like, this is how he did it, and we'd all be down there shirtless, like 4 guys just like attempting arm bars on each
My
other.
dad runs a business out of his home. So right above us is his business.
Wait, what kind of business is your dad
My
run?
dad's a claims adjuster.
He's sitting there like, yeah, what we need to do is we need to assess the risk of this party at the park, and then you just hear this like man meat slapping on each other in the basement.
What is going on? Oh, it's just my teenage sons.
Oh, yeah, they're just like practicing MMA.
Yeah.
But so there's this one time where Jordan came over and we were just chilling. Like we played video games and we would like drink soda and like just hang out.
I just gotta say this. We're just hanging out and chilling, but somehow Colin ends up with his gi pants on. I don't know how it happened.
Because I just started. Well, okay, so like, I mean, that brings a really good point. So like, what got me into MMA was all these things, but what got me into training specifically was Scott had joined Chai Sai Muay Thai, and he'd been training.
Chai Sai.
Yeah, he had been training for like 6 months or something like that. Took a grappling fight against Colby.
Matt Coble.
Matt Coble.
Oh, Matt Coble?
Yeah,
What?
the Coble brothers.
Actually, that's back way up, because this is the incident with Jordan. Let's talk about that, because that's actually before you trained. Now I remember you had the white and silver basketball shorts on. Remember the blue line? And you had the white beater. Yeah.
The throwbacks. So yeah, you like this is before Chai Sai then.
Okay.
Yeah. So Scott.
This is how the hole ended up in the wall, and Dad freaked out.
Well, no, it wasn't Dad. It was Lisa that freaked out. Yeah. So we were down in the basement. We were having a normal time. Jordan is a lifelong friend, and so we were down in the basement talking about something. And Scott was like, "Well, let's practice our fighting, or let's get him up or something." And Jordan's just like, "I don't know, dude." He's like, Jordan's like, "I don't know, man." And Scott's like, "Dude, stop being a bitch." like how 90% of fights start. And so Jordan's down with it. So Scott and I spar a little bit, and we have no idea of like range or technique, power, or any kind of like actual technique. So Scott and I get him up for a little bit, and then it's like, okay, Jordan. I'm like, yeah, Jordan, let's go. You put on the gloves now. And I'm like, and like I'm like my body movement are this exaggerated. I'm like, it's time for you to get him up. and so Jordan puts on the gloves, and we're going, and I'm like, okay, and he's like ducking, and I'm just like hitting him.
He covers up every time we hit him.
And I'm like,
so he would do this. He'd cover up.
I'm like,
and then he'd go like this.
And then I would go like
so he'd get hit,
and follow
then he'd turn this way down.
Oh, you would like turn away.
Yeah, and so Scott
towards the wall.
And dude, Scott is sitting there, and he's like, Jordan, turn and fight him, and just like
don't know what I'm talking about.
And he's just like, dude, you turn and stop cowering. And then finally Jordan like listened to him, and he just comes with this overhand right, and it pings me. And I was like, I hadn't been hit by Jordan like that, and I was just like not expecting it, and it kind of rocked me. And I was like, boom, 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 boom. And then he goes boom, boom, and Colin gets him to cover, and then he hammer fists him like this, the back of the head, and he falls, and I'm like, get him, bro. And he's curled up, and I'm hammer fisting him in the back of the head.
With your boxing gloves on?
With the rat boxing gloves on.
And you just hear, it's Jordan, and then you hear my dad, stop it now! And we stop.
I just imagine your dad with a client.
Oh,
and then he's like, what the hell is going on?
What the hell is this? Gadoosh. Stop it! And then we stop. Like immediately, we know when Dad like yells, we stop immediately. And but then Scott then it was like Scott's like, okay, Jordan, I'm gonna show you how to fight.
Oh, no.
And so Scott puts on the gloves, and like he's fighting with Jordan, but he's like doing the same thing, and then Jordan like ducks because Scott hits him really good.
Yeah.
And then Scott like pushes him into the wall, and he bends over, and his like ass goes like fully into the wall.
Yeah.
And this is like a recently redesigned basement. It was like all
supposed to be an art studio for my stepmom. Oh, we turned it into a fucking fight gym.
And then like we're fighting, and that like they found out, and they were super upset about it, and like
You see a hole in the wall, like
Yeah,
That
she-
matched Jordan's.
Yeah. They're like,
She's like,
what
"Jordan, come
happened here?" And Scott was like, oh, nothing happened. Nothing happened. Like, what are you talking about?
No, but I clearly shoved him into the wall.
Oh.
Yeah,
man.
we boxed Morgan. I remember Morgan came over and I boxed him. Yeah, I punched my friend with a left hook and he flew into these bushes.
Oh yeah, he was like,
Outside, I was like,
Yeah, in the backyard, I was boxing him and I made him come towards me. I was acting like I was Chuck Liddell.
Yeah.
Just drank some science. And he popped in, boom, hit him with the ugliest left hook and he flew in.
yeah, we scrapped with a lot of our friends, and I remember I forgot his name, but he brought the gin over this one time.
Who,
the orange, the redhead, I forgot his name, but he was like a grown man. We were like, you know, teenagers, and he like brought the gin over and Tyrone was there with us.
T-Money was there, yeah.
And Scott was like, we were Chaz.
You're talking about Chaz.
Yeah.
Chaz dropped me with a body shot when we boxed one time.
So we were down in the basement. We were drinking Seagram's gin, and
This is a really bad
story.
This is a bad time in my life. At
yeah,
least.
this is before we found the discipline in fighting.
yeah.
So Scott was super drunk, and he was like, "Hey, Tyrone, T-Money, we're gonna fight, man. We gotta fight." And he's like, "Man, stop, Scott." And then he's like, "Chaz, we're gonna fight, man." And like, so Chaz's like, "Nah, dude, we're good. Scott, you're fucking stupid, bro." And he's like, "Dude, who you're calling fucking stupid?" And then like this is the best part though, is Scott gets Chaz and he gets him in a rear naked choke and he's choking him like this and T-Money's like, "Dude, Scott, stop." He's like trying to pull him off. He's like, "Colin, what the fuck is wrong with your brother?" And then he's choking Chaz out, and then I'm just sitting there and I'm like, you know, 16, 15, and I'm just like, what is going on? And then I choke him out, so Scott's choking Chaz out. I get behind Scott and I'm choking him out, so there's just like both of us, and Scott's like, "Ah." And then my dad comes down and then I let Scott go. And my dad's like, "What is going on here?" And then Scott's like going towards me, and he's like, and T-Money's like trying to keep him back. He's like, "Oh, we gotta get him up, dude." And like, hell, and my dad had to have known that we were just shit faced. And he's just like, "What is going on?" Like smiling, like he knows that something is up.
No.
But then we're like, Chaz and Tyrone and I, we're like, Scott's just being stupid. And Dad leaves, and then you look at Chaz, and you're like, "Dude, we gotta get him up." And so like, yeah, those are the type of experiences that we had before we found.
I actually got into martial arts.
Yeah, and so like, what got me into training was when Scott.
Well, no, I was in Aikido at that point, so I was still. Aikido wasn't.
So yeah,
enough.
Aikido, and you were also getting out.
Dude,
oh my god,
Just
doing all this stuff. But yeah, you had gone to Chai Sai, and you'd gotten a grappling match at Axe
against Matt Cole.
one of
Damn.
the first, one of the like original Axe fighting championships.
Yeah.
And so Scott like
took him down with a
you
fucking
took him down.
single.
Yeah.
Got him out.
Nice.
And then he reversed you and got you in a key
No,
lock.
he had me in a Kimura, and I was in
Used
mount.
it as
I was
a-
okay, and Jonah told me to roll.
Oh my god.
And I had no grappling experience, so my corner, I had one grappling tournament before that.
Was that the one where you got into a fight with that karate guy?
Yeah. Yeah. Or I told him he didn't know what he was
He
talking
didn't know
about.
what he was talking about.
But no, I was on mount, and my corner was like, roll. So the guy had the Kimura, and I rolled, and they just rolled over on top of me. And then I didn't
He
tap.
had it in deep, and then the
I was
ref
like-
stopped it. The ref stopped it, and like I was there with Jordan, and
From the fucking garage.
yeah, and
the ring.
yeah, and we were both just like, man, what? We're like, wait, they stopped it. We're like, what? And I was like, that's bullshit.
And it was just a grappling match. And
It was
you
just
had
a grappling.
And you had just been training at Chai Sai at the time. Okay.
Yeah. Well, they wanted it to be an MMA match, which would have been
Even
knows?
worse.
Yeah, it might not have been. The guy had way more experience than me.
But yeah, so like I get home, like I left. I don't even think I talked to you after that. I was just like, I left. And Jordan and I are driving home, and the whole time from like Edmonds to Tacoma, I'm just like, that was bullshit. That was bullshit, man. We get back to the house and I have like this gin or this like absolute vodka, and Jordan and I'm just like pouring him a shot, and I'm pouring me a shot. I'm like 16 years old, and I'm like down in this basement like it's my own like mini bar, and I'm just like, yeah, Jordan, that's what I'm gonna do, dude. I'm gonna get into Barrow and I'm gonna start training. You know, 6 months later, I started training at Marcelo Alonso's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and smoked weed all the time and went and rolled and like had a good time and learned a lot from Marcelo's, and that's kind of what got me into fighting, because I went from Marcelo's to Chai Sai with Scott. Combined, had a knee injury, it kept me out, and then by the time I got back, I was training with Jonah in his garage. And
bro, you need to tell that story about. So I had 4 fights at Chai Sai. Colin didn't fight yet, but we were working towards that. We had a falling out after I fought DJ. We had a falling out, and
with the owner
of Chai Sai, because he had some issues going on. He wasn't instructing us well. He just had
I disagreed with his interpretation of contracts and like what happens when someone gets injured in your gym and payments and stuff like that.
Yeah, it got weird. So our friend was like, you know what? We're gonna start our own gym.
My garage.
In his garage.
Garage,
and it was called God's Army.
So God's Army, like
by a guy named Jonah.
Well, what really started
Jonah was good.
What really started that, Jonah was a scrapper, and Jonah, like, we were really good friends, and we still talk now, and it's good to kind of rekindle those old relationships. But yeah, Jonah was a scrappy Hawaiian, and like he showed us a lot, and we learned a lot. We hung out and like spent a lot of time together. And so like when I was getting better from my knee, after my knee surgery, and I'm like, I think I can start coming back, and we kind of had that falling out with the owner of the gym. Jonah was just moved into a new house with his dad. They had this basement where they hung up bags, and they had wrestling mats down, weights, and so we would go over there and train, and he was really good friends with Colin McKenzie.
Colin McKenzie had a team called God's Army in Hawaii, and he trained Max Holloway.
Yeah, so Max Holloway's beginning was like with Colin McKenzie and that group. I remember watching really early.
I talked to Max on the phone before he was even.
Yeah, I remember like we would watch the videos of the Hawaiian Fighting Championships, I think is what they called it.
Yeah.
And they had Max was on there, X1. Yeah, Colin was on there, and those guys were scrappers. Shison. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and so like all those guys were just scrappy, and like without having this like elite training, like they were just naturally good athletes and fighters, because that's what you do in Hawaii is you scrap, you get them scrap, bro. And so Jonah was like, we're gonna start our own gym in my basement. We're gonna call it God's Army. And so
no, dude, are you gonna no, so he said that to us. He's like, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna fight everyone from Chai Sai. He's like, I'm gonna fight Sam from Chai Sai.
Yeah,
and so we were like, okay. He's like, cause Crew's probably gonna have him fight me. And we're like, I don't know if that's true or not. We're just trying to start a gym rivalry.
Well, there's like, and he had like in the basement, he had like this picture of Jesus, because it was God's Army, and so that's cool. But then there's like this picture of Colin McKenzie, and he's like,
so Jesus, Colin McKenzie, and like it was slowly turning into a cult.
But Jonah, I remember this one time, like because we would hit the bag, and it, like at one point there was like you, me, Andre Keys, and Jonah is a Golden Gloves boxer.
Legit.
Good friends with Jonah, and so we were all in there training, and then I remember like we would just do like boxing and kickboxing, but then one day, like I said, I smoked a bunch of weed, and so Jonah and I we smoked, and we like did MMA sparring for 45 minutes straight. And it was the worst, most sluggish, awful experience you could ever have.
You guys thought it was tight as shit?
Well, we were just like, at the beginning, we're just like standing up, and then one of us takes the other person down, and then we're on the ground, like, we're like, whoa, in the Matrix, when they have like 6 versions of his arm, and he's like, and he's going all fast. We thought that, but in reality, we were like, And so it was just this, like, we pulled away from that experience learning nothing.
Yeah.
Literally learning nothing. And then that kind of ended this, like, career of God's Army. And it kind of...
Well, what happened, so this is what happened, because it's like, how did we end up in AMC, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because I fought DJ. I was working at Portland Avenue Park in Tacoma, which is a rough just place to be at, but I was working a youth summer program there, outdoor program, and my cousin came and visited me because he lived down the street, and he told me that DJ was fighting and actually defending his Axe title in Edmonds, and he's like, you should go watch. So I was like, for sure. So he got me a ticket, we drove up there. I walked right in the back and saw DJ and talked to him about our fight, and you know, he's like, oh yeah, dude, you broke my rib. It was a war. It was a tough fight. You know, you should come train. And at that time, they were at Vision Quest in the Auburn Mall, and that was what opened the door for me to go. But then eventually, Colin came and trained too. So I wanted to add that piece in because that's where it happened. Yeah.
Well, there was this long period of time between like me falling out, not necessarily falling out with Jonah, but just not training, getting a job. Well, because like. I didn't do much, and then I started going with you to AMC when they moved from Vision Quest to Pacific.
Yep.
And we started training in Pacific.
Yeah, you never trained at the Super Mall.
No.
Vision
And
Quest.
from what I understand, there's a lot of staff going on there, so I didn't miss much.
I trained there for like probably 7-8 months before we moved to the new location.
Right. And so like I had come in and like I was just like going through normal stuff, and that just was like just your normal, just like not really giving a crap about life and not really like trying
just floating.
Yeah, just kind of being there, like this like passive existence. And like it was like a good year, I think, before I finally got into AMC Pacific, and it was you, Scott. You were like, well, I was like, man, I want to get back and train. And I was like, I had just got a job again, and I was working and paying off this debt. And I bought, like, I was like, okay, I'm ready. And I bought these Hayabusa gloves, and I'm like, okay, this is all I need, and I'm good. And then I go into AMC, and Luke Pittman was down there, and I remember Luke was like, I come in and he's like, oh, hey, you're Scott's brother? I'm like, yeah, I'm really excited because I know Matt and DJ are like, you know, DJ's really good. Matt's the best coach in the world. Yeah. And he's like, all right, well, let me see your stance. And, you know, I'm the southpaw naturally, so I stand in southpaw stance, and he goes, okay, you're going to have to stand regular. Yeah. And I was just like this. I was like, really? Like, but all I know is southpaw. And he was just like, dude, Matt's not going to like that. Matt is gonna just tell you need to be regular, so you might as well get ready for it now. And 3 months later, Matt comes down with all the pros, which he did every couple of months. He would come down, or every couple of weeks, he'd come down with the pros.
Yeah, Ben Rothwell, Sakurai, Matt Brown,
and
Hallman and Mackenzie were in there.
Everyone, yeah. And so like Matt comes in, and I was like so nervous because, you know, I know Matt's like this, you know, one of the baddest people on the planet. Yeah. And so I go up and I'm like, hey Matt, like I'm Scott's brother, and I was talking to Luke, and I just wanted to ask you this question. And he was like, yeah. And I was like, I'm naturally a southpaw, but Luke said that, you know, I have to stand orthodox, and I'm not used to that. So like, when can I start transitioning to southpaw? And he goes, I have a lot of southpaw fighters. And that's it. And I was sitting there and I was like, so what have I been doing these last 3 months? It's like unlearning all these things I had learned. So like that was my introduction to AMC. It was just like not really like, it was like ambiguity, like, yeah, where like not everything has to be this like linear progression of how things work. And like that's kind of like what I've learned through my time at AMC is like not every one coach is gonna have the thing that like teaches you what you need to know. I mean, Matt has like most of those tools for you, so like you like if you need to learn anything, he will teach you. It's like you will relatively find that on your own, but I'll give you this large array of tools to be able to find that message for yourself.
Yeah, it's still like that.
Yeah. And it's that's how I've
a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I have a lot of southpaw fighters.
Yeah, I have a lot of southpaw fighters, and just looked at me and was like,
so when was your I'm trying to remember your first fight out of AMC. Was it against the is it the kickboxing, or did you do boxing first?
Oh my god.
Against that kid David.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
That was brutal.
Was it still a Pacific?
Yeah.
Yeah, he did a smoker against this kid from Mark, what's his name?
I forgot. Up in Everett. What was that called?
The guy who did all the smokers. CCMA?
Yeah. CCMA.
Oh, yeah, CCMA.
Yeah.
That was awful.
I think that place closed down now.
Dang, yeah.
Right next to the batting cages.
Yeah. And so, like, that was an awful experience because, like, I was just so embarrassed. Because, I mean, I didn't get knocked out or anything, but, like, I go in there and I'm just like, you know, I have this newfound, like, man, I can actually be a southpaw. And, like, I trained super hard for it, and my mind was just on other things, and I just wasn't there. And I get in, and this dude, like, they put me up against this, like, really small person, and, like, who's, like, really good at boxing. So he's like down here, like, super compact and, like, boxer ready, and I'm up here, like, I don't know how to put my chin down, and I don't know how to move. And so, like, I'm sitting there, and, like, we're going, and Matt's like, circle, and, like, I'm circling into his power, and he's just, like, landing a huge hook, landing an overhand right.
Matt was coaching you to get knocked out?
No, not at all. I just wasn't listening to him, and I was going straight forward, and he was. Dude, what was that?
Did it just explode? Or?
Keep going, man.
Circle.
Yeah, he just like the dude was just dumping overhand rights on me, and Matt was just screaming. He was like, circle, god damn it, circle. so pissed, and I'm just sitting there like not listening to it at all. Like everything just went out the window. And,
Circle, god damn it, you son of a bitch.
Yeah, he's like, you fucking idiot, what are you doing? At least that's what happened in my head. Like, I'm sure he was super pissed because I heard him yelling, and he eventually just stopped. And like the second round, he just stopped, and he was just like, I heard him go, he's not gonna listen to me. And it was true, I didn't listen to him. And it wasn't because like I was like trying to, like, it was just because I was so like hyper focused on this. It was my first like kickboxing fight, and like, and then from there, like, you know, that's like, I remember I looked at Hadley, she trained with us at Chai Sai, and I was like, she goes, you did good, Colin. And I was like, in my head, I'm like, I just got my ass
like, I didn't do good.
No, but I didn't get knocked out, and like I landed a couple shots, but I was getting my ass rocked, and it was a good like learning, like teaching moment for me to, one, listen to my corner, especially when Matt Hume is in it.
Yeah.
But two, just like I got that first fight out of the way, like, and I didn't like get knocked out.
And then you had kickboxing after that, right?
Yeah, like most of the stuff that I've done is like the smokers and like jiu-jitsu tournaments and
But then
stuff.
you boxed Showtime.
Oh yeah, oh my god. You remember Showtime?
Yeah.
Dude, that guy, I kept in touch with him after that, but yeah,
a lot of us box Showtime. I boxed Showtime.
Yeah, like,
did you box him in a smoker?
Yeah.
All of AMC, I think, is boxed
At one
Showtime.
point, yeah.
Like Kyle Murphy, who's like 205.
Yeah.
And like me, I was like 180, and
yeah, 150.
Yeah, and he's like 145.
Yeah.
And he's just like, I don't care. I respect it. But then when I saw like Kyle Murphy throwing hands on him, I'm just like, okay, dude, maybe you shouldn't be fighting people that are like 220 when you walk around. But yeah, I mean, that's I fought Showtime. I fought a couple smokers, and then the one guy from Big Will's gym was my last fight.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and that was probably, I was in really good shape for that one, and I'd say my technique was like at the best during that. And I look back like a couple months after the fight, and I was just like, dude, it was awful. Like, I wasn't following up on my kicks, and I wasn't like going from kick transitioning to another punching combo. And then I go back and looked at it like literally a couple months ago from today, and I was like, man, like my technique was okay. Like, I actually did really well in that fight. And you know, I haven't knocked anyone out, but I've like shocked somebody's liver, and I've like rocked people enough to where it's like they don't want to fight anymore. So
yeah, that guy didn't want to fight anymore.
Yeah, I think those were like the more satisfying fights for me, just because like making someone quit, whether it was like in jiu-jitsu, just wearing someone out, or in boxing, like that's the goal. You want to make it to where someone they want to stop what they're doing. which like now that I look back at it, I'm like, you know, why would I ever want to make someone feel like they don't want to do anything anymore? That's kind of like,
That's the point.
yeah, right? Yeah, it's the point of fighting, right? But like, yeah, I always want to, like, I always go back and like, after growing some, I like think about that stuff. Just like, how much did that really like help me grow as an individual?
Well, what would you say fighting, like how has fighting helped you in life? Like the examples, all the examples aside, like what would you think it has taught you, and what are some ways of how you look at the world or ways you carry yourself that have been impacted directly from fighting?
Yeah, man, I mean, that's a really deep question. You know, that's the whole purpose of this podcast, I guess, right? So
Yeah.
like, you know, when growing up, we, you know, I mean, as you know, but you know, Cholo may not know, is like, you know, our family was split up at an early age. So like, you know, we had a really traumatic experience with divorce and alcoholism and mental illnesses. And so Scott and I really kind of formed this bond at a really early age where like most of our life was like Scott versus Colin. We always were like fighting each other and stuff. And, you know, brothers do that, from siblings do that in general. But like, you know, that was kind of formed this thing where it was like I held this resentment from an early age, and so I would take it out in school, and I went into high school just not giving a fuck about things, and like got kicked out of schools after schools, fighting and selling drugs and like trying to be in a gang and like doing all this shit that I shouldn't have been doing, and just kind of going down this path. And then I got into fighting, and you know, like hearing those stories, like, yeah, I was getting fucked up and we were boxing in our basement and stuff, like that's all funny and stuff, but like that's how I lived my life. It was just like this
But even that was safe. Yeah, the drinking was horrible, but even that activity was safer than the other shit we had been doing and running around.
Yeah, hanging out with gangbangers and holding straps and robbing stores, not like at gunpoint, but like just snatch and grab and doing all this dumb shit.
Stealing shit, yeah.
Yeah, hanging out, selling drugs, man, kicking it with shady people. And so like what
hella shady people.
what like martial arts kind of did was it gave me this purpose. You know, it's like I'm a person of routine, and being like hyper observational, I've always like been able, like when I get into a routine, I can like get the routine down in a week, and then I start to like, I can do this mechanically, but then it's like now I can start to expand on it and kind of put my creativity into it. And something like martial arts is so abstract that any individual can kind of like make it their own. And that's part of the reason why I find AMC so educational, is because it like when you train with Matt, it's not him going, this is the right way to do it, you can't do it any other way. He's like, here's these set of tools, like I said. And so like that, like when I first got into martial arts, like it taught me the discipline. So it's like, okay, I can't, you know, it wasn't like, oh, I can't go drink and I can't go smoke, because we know that's what fighters do that, right? But it's like, I can't go out in the street anymore. I can't go hang out with gangbangers anymore, because I just don't have the time.
And I can't just get so fucked up that I can't like
go into the gym,
manage my life, you know?
Right. So
yeah.
it taught me that it's like I can hide my addiction to a point, but I have to like face the reality of like being able to go face my demons inside the gym, and that the perseverance of like hard training sessions, consistent training, and training for a fight, cutting weight, like all those experiences kind of culminated and allowed me to kind of develop as an individual. So like there's countless things I could go to, because every time that I've left fighting, whether it was like, okay, I got a knee injury, I come back. And I remember saying this when I first started training. I got my first stripe on my white belt. The brown belt at the time was like, do you like, how long do you see yourself training? Because I asked him like, how long did it take you to get your brown belt? And he's like, well, how long do you see yourself training? And I'm like, I don't see myself ever not training. And he's like, that's bold, because people have lives and move away from training. And I'm like, I'll always find myself back in this. Because it gives you this sense of purpose, you know, and it gives you this, like, especially with someone who's like been as lost as I was. So like, it gives you the discipline, the purpose, overcoming adversity, learning how to, within, you know, certain confinements, like interacting with people. Because you know, just like with MMA, I think that you know, a lot of the wrestling mentality of hyper masculinity and like, oh, you know, I'm gonna dominate my opponent and make them feel like shit, and like that's what comes in. So it's like you have to kind of develop yourself around that, you know.
Navigate
and
around
you have
it,
your you have your trade-offs, and I still like think that we can get in that kind of boys club mentality, no matter where you're at in fighting.
It happens real quick, yeah.
Yeah, but like, you know, from what I've learned from that, I've always taken the positives, and it's like helping your teammate, not trying to hurt them. And so like those things have like kind of developed me. So it's like made me who I am today, but allowed me to develop in my own like bubble, you know, in my own container.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff, and I mean, we could have a whole episode on what MMA and martial arts has taught us as individuals.
What would you say, like, so like if you were able to imagine your life without it, having not had the journey that we've had, and that's another deep question, what would you, if you're being honest, right, not just like for the sake of saying the first thing that comes to mind, but like just thinking about it, if it wasn't there, what do you think you'd be doing? Would you still be on the path you're on now with school? Would it be less likely that you are where you're at now without martial arts?
That's hard. That's hard to say, you know, because like where I was at before martial arts was such a dark place, and like I've gone there because I have depression and anxiety, so like I get to those dark places where I didn't want to come out of my room, and I still have it, even training now and being in shape somewhat now. You know, I still get in those places where it's like I don't want to deal with people. I don't want to deal with myself right now. So without that, I mean, I might not have like corrected my path. So I may have been in the streets, not doing much, because I've been in and out of the streets for a while. You know, I went and like in between training at AMC and getting a job and doing all this stuff, I went out. And you know, I got addicted to drugs and was taking coke and snorting pills and shit and doing all this crazy stuff. So I probably would have stayed on that path, because like it got to the point where I was living, where our house got shot up
On the hilltop, yeah.
Yeah, and thankfully, you know, I have resources like my father, who allowed me to live in his apartment with Scott.
That was one of the main reasons we actually moved up here. I forgot that.
Yeah.
Yeah, moved up to Kirkland.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's too much shit going on for him in Tacoma, and it was getting hot, so my dad was like, well,
let's get him up to,
exactly.
And thankfully I had a cousin who got me into a job up there in Seattle.
And I got him in there, so.
And so, yeah, so like I'd say if I didn't have that and I didn't have like resources like my dad, I'd probably still be like, you know, rolling cigarettes, smoking cigarettes, and like being like this drug addict.
Being a fuck off.
And not giving a shit whether, like, not thinking about the future. Because when you're in martial arts, like, it's easy to get hyper focused on it, but then it allows you to ask those questions, like, should I go to school? Should I finish? Like, I didn't finish school, so should I do that? Should I pursue another aspect of martial arts? Can I make this a career? And so I had to critically analyze like where I was at in life, and martial arts helped me do that. So without it, I'd still say I'm hyper observant and critical, but like I don't think I would be making the same decisions.
Well, I was just gonna say, dude, it's easy just to get distracted in life, but we grew up in a good neighborhood, an upper middle class suburban environment, but just Tacoma is such like a hodgepodge of different like socioeconomic statuses that like the people we hung out with, it was easy for us to get distracted by what they were involved in. And so like martial arts kind of was a healthy thing to keep us anchored.
Like a healthy outlet.
Yeah, and dude, it's crazy with Tacoma, right? Like, and I'm sure there's a lot of other places you could say this about, but like you could go back and motherfuckers are still, that didn't make it out or didn't get something positive in their life, they're still doing the same thing. Like I remember I went back, what is it?
It's 11:15.
Okay. And what are you doing?
Yes, it's 11:15.
Is he telling me to steal third, or?
He was like,
who's on first?
He was like,
It's 11:15.
Annexation of Puerto Rico.
we can wrap this up in the next 15 minutes.
yeah,
We
but what
got
I was
full
saying
time.
is like I remember when I made my pro debut in 2014, I went back to Tacoma. I was at the Safeway over there on the hilltop, and I ran into Big Rob. Big Rob, he was this dude we hung out with, and he's just
Big
like
Rob was into all sorts of shenanigans.
all sorts of drugs and stupid
Some
gang
not
shit.
good stuff.
So I ran into him, and he was like, "Oh, you're fighting, da 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 da. Oh man, you know, because Sky was doing her modeling thing. Our sister is like Instagram model and stuff. He's like, oh, she's doing this. You guys got money, da da da. And I was like, not really, bro. But what are you doing? He's like, oh, you know, I'm still banging. I'm still, and it's just like you can run into guys like that, people like that in that area are like a dime a dozen, you know.
Yeah.
So it would have been really easy to fall into that peer group and just not do shit, and not like try to find a way out, or at least try to find a social group. Peer group that's doing positive things. So it is really remarkable. And I know it's a cliche when people are like, martial arts changed my life, but I was like, well, you know, it definitely changed ours.
Yeah.
And that, you know, because for me, when I think about it, I don't know about you, Pocholo, but if I didn't have it and if I hadn't engaged in it, I don't think I would have gone back to school, just like Colin said. Because I thought
it put your life in perspective.
Well, I just thought I wasn't a good student until then I'm training with Matt, and it's like I have to pay attention, and there's these high level concepts I need to get, there's these tasks I need to complete, and I'm like, I can do it if the focus is there.
Yeah.
So why not apply that same focus to a degree?
Yeah.
That wasn't present before martial arts. I said fuck school because I wasn't in control of my education. Really.
You weren't in a system that was able to utilize it, or pretty much something that you weren't like passionate about or motivated about.
Right. So in a lot of ways, that served as like a guiding force for sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, like when you have and like when you have a like the spiritual guide, I want to say, and whether or not he assumes that task explicitly or not, like Matt Hume will guide you to the outcome that in his confinement is like your destiny. Whether it's your destiny is to be a coach, or your destiny is to be the greatest fighter of all time, or to not be any of that and to go pursue something else. He will guide you to that, and that's a wise champion.
Like Tim. I don't know how much life advice.
No. So before you got here, Colin said how it would be useful if we had a wise janitor person to let us in
into the building.
He's like, oh, what are you guys talking about?
He's just doing it on his whiteboard, and he's like
just doing
solving the theory of relativity.
Wait, it's Goodwill Hunting.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, it is Goodwill Hunting.
Yeah,
but yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I think you kind of hit the point right there, Scott. It's just like you know, it's easy to kind of like say, like where we would have been had we not been, you know, in martial arts, and how cliche it can be, like, oh yeah, it changed my life and I lost 30 pounds.
But it was a huge part of your life. It really shaped how you guys.
Well, think about it. Yeah. Think about how the whole martial art thing got restarted is because of Grandpa.
Yeah,
Jack.
Our grandpa was a Golden Gloves boxer in the Navy, and
I was fucking around doing. Yeah, dig to the body, Scott. These palookas, they can't take it to the body. Like literal quote from my grandfather.
Yeah.
But no, I was getting in a lot of shit at Foss, and so he went and talked to all these different people, and he's like, what can I do for my grandson? And we had a family friend whose daughter was getting in trouble, and they got her into Aikido. No, sorry, Judo. Okay. And for whatever reason, Judo Judo was like,
yes, Sensei Mike.
I was a judo master. Don't you ever forget that.
And it got her on the right path. So he did the same. He was like, well, it wasn't judo. He was like, it's Aikido. So he got us involved. He chose Aikido, got me involved in that, and that's when the change started to happen. Not immediately, but at least the thing was I had somewhere to be, and I had people that were gonna hold me accountable, you know. And I was 16, 17. For someone, when you don't feel like shit and then people are telling you that you are good at something and that they enjoy you being around, that just means the world. That means the world as an adult too, right? But especially as a lost 16, 17-year-old kid, not so sure of yourself, don't know what your next move is, and someone's telling you, hey, this is your thing, you're good at it. Or even if they're not saying it in that way, they're saying, we like that you're here. That's just so important.
Like a positive environment.
Because we have people in our social group that were really, I mean, we had out of the gangs, like our friends were like the nicer guys.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like they weren't their brothers were the hardcore, really like lengthy prison sentence, like may have shot people, robbing people, selling. But like their siblings and their peers would tell us things too, like, oh no, you're gonna hit that lick, you're gonna do that, and then there's that feedback, even though it's a negative behavior. Then we start feeling like we belong with them
because you're just so adjacent to it.
Well, they'll make you feel like you belong. If you're doing something for them, you're helping them get money.
Yeah, well, because they'll drag you down.
Yeah, they'll make you feel like you belong real quick though. Until some shit happens, and then it's like then you're getting interviewed by police. It's like, oh no, I don't know that motherfucker. So it was real like that.
Well, yeah, I mean, like one thing, like I think that, like to finish off my piece, is like when when I left AMC for the first time to go work and live out on my own and stuff, like, you know, I got heavy into drugs, and like all that stuff happened, culminated with me having to move out of Tacoma just because of how drastic it was getting. And so I moved up to Kirkland, was working in Seattle, got super fat, and got used to working a full-time job, not really had this purpose. And you had been training at AMC Kirkland with DJ for a really long time. So like I remember you, like I mentioned it and you'd be like, yeah dude, I've talked to Matt, get back into AMC, and I was just like, well, I just heard it and was like, well, I'm not really listening. And then one day I was just like, you know what, I'm just gonna go do it. And I just remember coming in on a whim, and Matt was teaching class, and he gets up and I'm like, what's up, Matt? And he was just like super excited, and he's like, what, are we gonna get you signed up again today? Let's do this. Because I remember I was like, oh, so like, you know, Scott said something about a discount because we bring me on the old rates.
Cut that out.
Yeah, do you
cut the rate.
Do you remember that?
I can neither confirm nor deny there's been any discussion of a discount.
But then like he was like,
Ender, God damn it, you got it.
But he just shows up. He just shows up behind me.
He's like an elephant never forgets. Yeah. I'm dropping your rate. I was like, so you're choking me, but you're gonna make me pay less to be at the gym.
Right.
Okay.
He's choking both of you.
Yeah, for sure.
But I'm getting choked out.
This magic third hand shows up.
We're just like, what happened to Ender? And he's just like flying away. Like, what happened?
But no, he's just like this.
Chill.
Ender's a bird. It's like,
yeah.
Oh damn, we all fucking were high on acid that day. Anyway.
Yeah.
No, but Matt got up. He's super excited.
He was super excited, and he was just like, yeah, let's get you signed up. He's like, whatever it takes, because he knew how important it was that like I was there. So I was always grateful for that, and like, yeah, and that saved me from going down this rabbit hole again. And so like that's the importance to me, is like when you get involved with something like that, it's everything, the whole aspect of it, the community aspect of it, the individual development, the consciously assessing where you're at and whatever you're doing. That's like the biggest things that I've learned. And so wrapping it up, I know you guys have to do the wrap up thing, but
no, bro, honestly, you can wrap it up, bro. Because
I'll wrap it up with the story.
Before you say that, though, before you say that, I feel like everything you've talked about is extremely valuable. Just for like, it really is the embodiment of what
martial arts
can do for somebody,
right.
And it is, you have a very tangible idea of just how you've internalized the philosophy and how you've created your own idea. So yeah, you finish it out, dude. I mean, I don't want to.
Well, I'll finish it out on the story, man. And the story is like what the inside joke about the elephant never forgets. This one time, and because like just an idea of where I was at, I was training every day at AMC Pacific. I was training, I would go to the gym before and after school, like to the YMCA, go hit the weights, go do cardio, and then go to AMC. So I was training all the time. And then I had this dream where I was at AMC Pacific and we were sparring, and but there was just a bunch of Russians there. And then I look over, and like in Fedor Emelianenko, he's like my favorite fighter of all time, next to Anderson Silva, was there. And like Scott, or I don't know if it was Scott or Matt, where it was like, you have to spar Fedor.
Probably Matt.
Yeah, I think it was Matt, and he was like, you have to spar Fedor, and I'm like, what? I'm not ready for this. And then like I'm going, and I'm in the ring, and then I like give Fedor this uppercut because he ducks, and I knocked him out. And then I'm like sitting there just like finishing him.
Wait, what do the Russians think of all this?
Hey, let him finish the story.
So I'm just like sitting there, and then like next thing I know, I'm sitting on like this row of bags, and all these Russians are like, let's go. And then I'm like looking down the line, and they're looking at me, and they're like, yeah, like this guy's got it. And then I look down the line, and I see Fedor poke his head out, and he looks at me, and I'm just like, dude, I just knocked out Fedor. And he goes, and then next thing I know, I'm sparring Matt, and Matt's just tearing me up, and he's like choking me out, and he's just like, an elephant never forgets. And like, no, that doesn't make any sense at all. And none of it made sense.
Oh my God.
But that is the epitome of my martial arts in that one tree. It's like I climbed to the top, and still I have to fight longer, and elephant never forgets. I appreciate you guys bringing me on.
No, thanks for coming on, bro.
Thank you.
Thanks for doing this.
So,
an elephant never forgets.
let's tell them about the donations, and let's
please support our show.
Please.
It's you can
go down to www.patreon.com/pankration.
But what would we do with all this money?
You shut up, Ed. And yeah, if you like the show, if you support the show, I mean, anything helps, and it just goes into helping us with our production.
Yeah,
I mean, we literally have gum on our equipment right now.
Yeah,
saving it.
A couple things. If even to the like 1 or 2 or 3 viewers, if you, it's not a bad thing. We really want to try to get better gear. We really want to try to get better production because we have big aspirations for this. So. If you want to support, we really appreciate it, and we just really need community support. So anything you can donate. We have Ender who does this for free, and we really appreciate it. But we'd like to help him get some new equipment and potentially compensate him as well. So
that'd be nice
at some point.
Yeah, exactly. And then the more we get, the more we're able to put out, and we're always committed to putting out the best content that we can, and
as much as we can.
We'll continue to do.
All right.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah. Thanks, man.